Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, a Hyundai Inster launch special edition. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. Inster? What is this Inster you speak of, Alan?
It's a new, small Hyundai, the likes of which we have never seen before.
In the UK.
It is a new, small electric SUV from Hyundai, which sits between the i10 and the i20, so it's somewhere between an A and B segment, maybe kind of closer to B segment. Hatchback SUV thing. It's not really, is it an SUV? I mean, if you're going to call it an SUV, it's really, you're stretching the definition of an SUV, but it is vaguely sporty.
More crossover-y.
Well, it's sporty and it's utility and it's a vehicle. It kind of fits into that category, but it's kind of tall. To me, it's sort of somewhere, I don't know. It's like the new Renault 4 or the old Renault 4 or any of these things, which would have been SUVs at the time.
Yeah, like the Fiat Panda, that sort of idea behind it.
Yeah, it's that sort of concept.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Hyundai invited me along to the UK launch of the Insta down in Bournemouth. They flew me down from Edinburgh, they fed me food, they put me up for the night in a nice hotel room, and then they flew me back the next morning. It was awful. No, it wasn't. It was great. Well, it was fun because I haven't been on one of these for a long time. But yes, this is also quite an important car for Hyundai. And as we'll go through in just a second, it's towards the more value/budget end of the EV world.
Mm-hmm.
The Insta itself is a global car, although I very much doubt it will reach the USA. Maybe Canada, because they do sometimes buy small cars, but we'll see. It was originally a concept called by the name it's sold as in Korea, which is the Casper. I think we covered it in New Car News some time ago when it was still a concept.
We did.
But it's not a concept anymore, and it is available in the UK in 3 different trim levels. There's the 01, 02, and the Cross. Prices start at £23,495 for the Insta 01 with the 42 kilowatt battery and putting out 97 metric horsepower. They rise to £25,045 for the 01, again, 49 kilowatt hour battery and 115 metric horsepower. Then the Insta 02 with the same drivetrain is £26,745, and the range is capped off by the Insta Cross, which is a fair chunk more expensive, at £28,745. Again, it shares that same higher power drivetrain and higher capacity battery.
Okay.
Compared to some of the more
affordable,
budget-conscious EVs, affordable, well, yes, some of the other small EVs in that same size, those prices do seem relatively high. That is until you start to compare the trim levels and what's included beyond the sort of normal, it's got electric windows and alloy wheels and these kind of things. All of the trim levels include things like keyless entry. They all include a heat pump and a battery conditioner. I know that there are vehicles I've driven recently which were twice the price, at least twice the price, where those are still options.
Which is insane.
Which is mad, given there's something that I definitely desire, certainly in this part of the UK, up here in frozen Scotland. He says it's only 11 degrees outside, it's not bad. Up here in frozen Scotland, they are things that I would say were a must for most EVs, for most purposes. The Insta are available, and the availability does vary between spec, but use a configurator on the Hyundai website to work that one out, because otherwise we'll be here all night. It is available in a number of colours. Ooh, colours. These colours are inspired by the natural hues of Hanji paper, according to the press release. I'll just let that one sit for a second or two. Natural Ivory Solid is free of charge. That is your non-taxed, non-colour. Actually, it is a colour. It is ivory, so slightly yellowish, as opposed to just white. Atlas White Solid is a £300 option. Jungle Khaki Solid, which sounds unfortunate, is £600. Metallic, so sienna orange and pearl colours, that's buttercream yellow and abyss black, are £600 extra. If you choose Atlas White, Jungle Khaki, Sienna Orange, or Aero Silver, which Aero Silver being a metallic colour, which I realised I had listed before because I was cross-referencing 3 different documents and missed one. And you want that black roof on an Inster 02, then that will cost you £500 on top of the colour tax.
Well, okay, so 1,100 quid then.
So 1,100 quid in colours.
Potentially maximum.
Potentially. Yeah. Should you wish. I wouldn't bother with the black roof.
Okay.
But I don't really like cars where they split it that way anyway. The car I drove on the day was Sienna Orange, which is a sort of metallic orange, slightly darker, sort of orangey browny colour.
Yeah.
Great metallic sparkle to it. Looked great in the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Looked really good. Most the colours here do look good. Even the natural ivory is not white enough. Should you want one of those or take one in one of the plainer flat colours, then there is a range of decals and stuff which you can add on, or the dealer can add on to make it a little bit funkier, maybe break up some of the flat colour.
Okay.
Lots of options beyond just the colour tax to jazz it up and make it yours and make it how you want. Speaking about the rest of the exterior, though, it is, I would say it's a cute and non-threatening shape.
Yes, I was going to say that whilst there is much echoes of SUV-ness, even though it's a smaller vehicle, it is done in a non-threatening manner. And it's also, they've managed to, I feel, keep it without going far too cutesy. So it will appeal to everyone, I feel.
I wouldn't feel ashamed, embarrassed, or weird driving it, or thinking it's a girly car, or it's too boring just for old people, or it's too much just for young people. It doesn't fit into any of those things. It is generally, my notes here, I said it's a happy little thing, and it is. It's kind of graphical. So it's got big round DRLs at the front. It's got pixelated head indicator and tail lights. But all of that is on quite a... you see, I'm trying to choose my words here because anything I say makes it sound like I'm damning it with faint praise, and I'm really not. It's a bit like the baby offspring of a classic Renault 4 and an Ioniq 5.
Okay.
It's got that, but I don't want to use the word cute because I don't think it is cute, but I think it is very much in that sort of, and it's not sort of angry toddler or anything.
It's not over masculine, and it's not over effeminate either.
It treads a very fine line that it's actually quite hard to describe. Well, I find it quite hard to describe.
Yes.
To add to the chunkiness of it, the O2 and the Cross models get roof rails as standard on both sides. Then, of course, there's all sorts of other lifestyle accessories that you can bolt onto those on the top. Every model gets alloy wheels. 01 gets 15-inch alloys with a sort of... They're a cross-type form, but they made me think of Tetris. You know how you get that T-shaped piece in Tetris? You don't get a cross in genuine Tetris. But if there was a cross version, it's sort of that made up of 5 squares type of pattern in the middle, and the outer ones are hollow, which I think is kind of cool. Actually, I really quite like those wheels. In fact, I probably prefer them to the 17-inch 4-spoke polished X design that the O2 gets, which is sort of paint and then diamond cut. And I don't really like diamond cut alloys as a rule. But they're pretty good for that. But I actually prefer the 15 inches of the 01. Instacross also gets 17-inch alloy wheels. They are a 6-spoke sort of bottle cap style, which is really quite cool. I haven't seen a cross in the flesh yet. Everything at the launch was a 02. The cross wasn't there, and the 01 wasn't there. They hadn't made it to the country just yet.
Okay.
Generally speaking, the cross gets more cladding and earthier colours in place of the sort of sunny, bright pastels and stuff that you get on the 01 and 02.
Okay.
When I had the choice, before I arrived at the launch, of did I want the Sienna Orange or did I want the yellow one, and I chose the Sienna Orange, which I do prefer, but the yellow one was much nicer in the flesh than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
In summary, the outside, I feel, is sort of cool Fisher-Price. If you ask Fisher-Price to do a little vehicle that is a little sort of crossover that isn't be aggressive, then this is pretty much what it would look like. And that, to me, as a kid who grew up with lots of Fisher-Price and stuff, is a compliment.
Okay.
Just to make that clear, it is not
quickly
any description of cheapness or anything like that.
No.
It has a Fisher-Price vibe to it, and it has a Fisher-Price vibe in a good way.
Cool. What's it like on the inside, then?
The inside is surprisingly grown up, and it's surprisingly large. It really is big.
Are we about to insert the cliche of TARDIS-like?
We are not about to insert the cliche of TARDIS-like because it's a cliche and I'm going to try to avoid it. Starting at the back, as is traditional for us, the boot, it's a good size as it sits for an A or B segment hatchback.
Mm-hmm.
That good size definitely fit a week's shopping and stuff in. Size can be varied. So the rear seat slide, that means volume can change depending on your needs. You don't have to fold the seat if you need a wee bit more room. All of these kind of good things. It also has a proper hard luggage cover at the back with the sort of bellows curtain expansion bit that sort of hangs between it and the seat. So whenever you move the seat forward, everything remains covered in the luggage compartment.
Oh, that's good.
There is an undercroft under the boot for charging cables or whatever. Things that aren't in the boot area are curry hooks.
Okay.
Massive. That's minus a star.
Shame.
But there are plenty of other hooks and modularity further forward in the cabin, I think, which could be said to make up for it. The rear seat splits 50-50. On each side, it includes there is a sort of panel to bridge the gap between the seat back and the sort of lid of the undercroft as you fold the seat forward, and if the seats have been slid forward a little bit. So it's always flat but slightly lumpy floor in the boot, if you know what I mean. There's a small step to get up onto that panel. And it is, as I say, practically flat with the seats folded. You could slide things in relatively easily, and you can slide some pretty large things in.
Okay.
A normal-sized washing machine on its back will probably fit in. I mean, obviously, there wasn't one on hand to test.
Well, I suppose that was difficult to get through as hand luggage on your flight down.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Those Loganair flights.
Because it is one of our normal measuring.
No, it isn't. Rear seat belts have holders to stop them rattling or getting in the way when they're not being used. They're the kind of slot type, so you sort of put the metal tang into the slot, bolts them out to the side, as opposed to the clip style that Toyota use, which can get broken and that kind of thing.
Also, it means that with the clip type, the actual metal bit can rattle sometimes if you're unlucky. I like that. And you just mentioned the back seats there. You said it was 50-50, so is it just two seats in the back?
It is just two seats in the back. No center armrest or anything.
Okay.
It is two seats defined with two seat belts as well.
Very clearly,
yes.
In case NHTSA wants to pay attention.
Yeah, in case it does get sold in America. Also, each side slides independently as well.
Yeah, I heard that they could slide and move and stuff. That's actually a really helpful and interesting touch.
Worth saying, you just reminded me that that's actually from the O2 and the Cross have that.
Okay.
In the O1, they just fold.
Right.
However you decide to configure them and fold them, there is a lot of space in the back seat. I know I'm not the tallest person in the world. I don't have the longest legs, but I could do the whole sitting behind yourself.
Ding, ding, ding,
ding,
ring
ding,
the bell.
ding, ding.
He said
I know.
it.
You have to do it. But you have to do it. And I couldn't just do the whole sitting behind yourself. I could do it with 4 inches of knee room to spare. My feet were barely under the seat in front.
I've seen the picture. It does look, and I've had a little quick brief poke around an Insta. And
Did you sit in the back seat?
No, I didn't. I didn't need to because you had.
All right.
And it is remarkable how much space is in that vehicle, and makes me feel that perhaps manufacturers are beginning to get to grips with the fact that they have a EV platform.
Well, that's it.
And they feel the freedom to do it as well.
Because, I mean, the back seat floor is completely flat. In fact, the front seat floor is completely flat across. There is no transmission hump or anything like that at all. If there was a third seatbelt, which there isn't, so don't do it, and you had 3 people across, then they would actually have room for their feet and their knees as well.
Yeah.
Which is almost unheard of,
even
in much, much bigger cars. Those little Renault 4 proportions that I was talking about before, they mean that you have loads of headroom as well. Again, actually, my height is in my back, so I tend to sort of end up with my head brushing the ceiling in the back of smaller cars. I could have worn a gendarme's hat in the back, which is one of the design criteria for the original Renault 4, supposedly. But you could have sat there wearing a hat inside the Inster.
I've just noticed something running through the pictures, and this is my fault because I've taken this forward before we've checked this. But there is an undercroft to the boot, which does appear to be quite large.
It is, yes.
And it looks like somebody's thought it through, and that's where the cables go, because that is typically a problem that when you get a press car, and I know, by the way, this is very much motoring journalist worries, but the cables are in the boot and they slide around because not many companies have thought through how to deal with it. Some put Velcro on the bottom and stuff. But this looks like, where are people realistically going to stick the cables? They're going to put them in the boots. Let's get them in a nice area they can hide them in.
Especially if you've got a home charger and they rarely need to use those cables.
Yeah.
There is no, I know we're at the back of the car still, but there is no frunk or fruit on the Inster. It is all motor and inverter under the bonnet up front.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of charging and charging cables, though, there is a USB-C charging port in the rear of the front seat squab in the middle. Why is it the front seat squab and not in the center console? We'll come to that in a wee bit. But there is a USB-C port down there for people in the back to be able to charge their devices as you're going along.
Cool.
That's quite cool and useful because there is a whole bunch of modular accessories and other bits and pieces which you can bolt into the interior. In fact, you don't even bolt them. There's no little latch. The panels on the doors, certainly the front passenger and, front driver as well. I actually had one in the test car I drove. You can have little photo frames. You can have little string holders for holding things. There is a golf umbrella holder for the back, which just magnets onto the back of the front seat. If you fold the back of the front passenger seat forward, you can get a little table attachment, which levels it off so that it can become a little desk if you need that. There's a whole load of stuff.
Hyundai Group seem to have really gone into this in a big way of living with stroke in your car.
I think it's a sort of urban Korean Japanese thing about that, which is a little bit of personalization, but also it can be the only space that's necessarily yours as well. To an extent, you can garnish and decorate it and make it right for you. So not only is there that seat back tray, which is a £98 accessory, by the way, there is an organizer for the seat back tray, which you can put on top. The seat back tray includes an extra cup holder and straps and stuff for holding down paperwork and things, but even stuff like little storage garnishes in beige or in black, depending on what color of interior you have, you can contrast or match. You can get a seat back table for the back of the driver's seat. There's a whole load of stuff that you can get for it.
I think that's a really interesting idea to bring to Western audiences, because it's not something we've typically done. However, as we go to the electric future, we are having to either sit in a roadside cafe or in our cars if we're on the move, if we're not at home. Making the space more usable or opening our eyes to how usable the space can be, I think is really interesting.
I think it's making it livable when you're not traveling. What it's doing. Yeah. There's loads of stuff like that. Similarly, the front seat, one of the other cool things about the interior is that it has a bench front seat, essentially. I mean, it is split in two. So as the driver's side and passenger side, you can adjust them independently, but they do essentially form a bench across the front of the car. There's two cup holders in the middle just to delineate it and make sure that you're not trying to seat a sixth person there, which I think they'd have to be very small, but there we go. And there's also an armrest that folds over the top. The cup holders and stuff in the UK are built into the driver's seat side. I imagine that becomes the passenger seat side in left-hand drive countries, but I haven't seen a left-hand drive one to test it.
No, I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's just a really nice feature when you see it when you go in, and then, but if you don't want to snuggle up to the person next to you, there is an armrest. There are cup holders in the way.
Yeah.
As I said before, there's a flat floor in the front, and right down at the base of the dashboard, because there isn't a binnacle that runs right down and back. Obviously, it turns into the seat with a space in between. So at the very bottom of that sort of dashboard area is the V to L 230 volt socket. That's optional in the tech pack. Above that, there's a little cubby for, I don't know, plushy toys, something, Suki Sweeties. And then above that was a little tray with a built-in Qi wireless charger for your phone.
Okay.
Above that, really, the dashboard proper, inverted commas, starts. There's buttons for parking sensors and camera buttons, as parking cameras and stuff, as well as the auto hold switch. And on the O2 and Cross models, there is small switches for the heated seats.
Nice.
Yeah.
Again, explaining or underlining why the price is the price.
Yeah. And that's really quite high up. You're barely lowering your hand from the steering wheel to reach those. So there's no fumbling about down between the seats or anything to try to find switches or anything. Above that is a panel of buttons and a little screen dedicated completely to the single zone climate control, which is standard across the whole range.
Cool.
Above that again, volume tuning knobs. That sort of row of 7 or so buttons, which Hyundai has sort of standard across its range for shortcut buttons to choose inputs and navigation. And of course, there's at least one configurable button with a star on it there that you can choose what you want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
To the left of that, over towards the passenger side, there is a USB-A socket, USB-C power socket, and a 12-volt power socket as well. In the 2 and the Cross, there's also mood lighting. It was blue in the one I had, in the O2 I had. I don't know if it's color configurable. I didn't go off and play with it, I'm afraid.
Okay. That is something they have done higher up the range, so maybe.
I don't mind it. It's fine. I think it's quite nice. It's nice and dark. It's making the space inhabitable when you're not driving, Andrew. You've just said that that's something. Doesn't necessarily mean you're driving around in a disco, okay?
Great for the gram.
It's not a Mercedes. Special mention should go to the air vents in the center console that are above the climate control section. They look like they've been stolen from a 1980s BMW, a sort of E30, E32, E34.
I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking it.
They've got that kind of barrel with the slots, absolute dead ringers. I'm sure if I put them beside each other, I could spot the differences, but they are very much in the style of a 1980s BMW air vent. I approve of that.
Yes.
The 2 in the middle are split by the hazard switch, though not by the sort of volume of air control, which you get in a BMW. Above all of that, at the sort of top of the stack, and it's really the space I've just been describing is a little more than a foot in height.
It is all really well controlled and kept nice and neat together.
It's packaged really neatly.
Mm.
Everything that I'm describing is very close to each other, but it's very clear what the different zones are.
Yes.
And that's all topped off by a 10.25-inch touchscreen for all your entertainment and nav delights. Front of the driver is a small screen that shows primarily speed and range, but you can get all the usual kind of trip computer stuff in between those two numbers. Speed and range are rendered really nicely in perspective inside these little cubes that sort of occasionally twiddle around the outside. It's not distracting, but and I think that some people would buy it and never notice. But there's these little cubes around them, and they've got little sparkly bits that move up them. Now, I hadn't really thought about it at the time, but I got back to the PR team afterwards and said, you know the little flashing bits and the little sparkles on the cubes? Do they show anything in particular? You know, does it flash faster when we're using more energy or going quicker or what? I didn't notice any change. Was there something I should have noticed? And they said, no. Actually, it's just because it looks nice. It doesn't change. It doesn't mean anything. It just looks nice.
Okay.
That was good enough explanation for me. I thought it was really nice. I thought it rendered really nicely. I thought it was clear to read. I understood exactly what was going on, and it wasn't over fussy. I think some of the premium manufacturers have got a little bit carried away with how many hexagons they can fit in and how much style, how much they can make it look like something out of Wipeout or some hyper-futuristic video game. And they really haven't done that in this case. It is the important numbers are there. They're front and center. They're very clear to read. You can then choose what you have in between them. I did my usual. I like to have the trip meter of how far I've gone since I, depending on what's available to me, started or recharged or refilled, how much further I can go, and then any kind of consumption number in between. And that's exactly what the Insta gave me.
Cool.
On the driver's side, there is, of course, a steering wheel. That tends to be relatively fundamental these days.
Well, this is good to hear.
It's a little 3-spoke one, very much standard small Hyundai steering wheel, and it's sort of layout. So on the left is for all the driver assistance stuff. The right is for all the entertainment and nav system stuff. There is a drive mode button for changing drive modes down to the bottom left, a little separate one. A little like you get in one of the N models, but without being an N. Actually, an Insta N would be hilarious. That would be cracking. And then so you can scroll through those. It's the usual choice of Eco makes everything green, Normal keeps everything blue, and Sport makes everything red. There we go. That's what the drive modes do. There's some remapping of the throttle, and it's hard to overtake in Eco, and it's hard to drive smoothly in Sport. So I just left it in Normal.
Which is what most normal people will normally do.
The obligatory poking of the button and going, oh, well, actually, I prefer the normal mode. There are also little flappy paddles on the back for amount of regen. You increase the regen with the right one, you lessen it with the left one. You can treat that like flappy paddle gear changes. Or you can do what I do and just hold the right one until it goes auto. If you're outside of town, I'll talk about it a bit more later, but it automatically chooses the regen based on terrain, roads, how you're driving. Whereas in town, you probably want to ramp up the regen and have closer to single pedal driving, and that means that you're also charging lots more when you're in town.
Mm-hmm.
Park mode, direction of travel are selected from a sort of silver-coloured controller on the right-hand side of the steering column. So you sort of turn it forward to go forward, you turn it backwards to go back, you press the button on the end to put it into park.
Mm-hmm.
Simples. One last thing about the interior. Now, I don't know if this is standard on the 01 or if it's part of the ambient lighting, which Andrew loves so much. And at the middle of the steering wheel, there's no Hyundai logo on it. There's no Insta or Casper or anything on it. There is just 4 little squares, which are illuminated blue. I don't know why they're illuminated blue, but they are illuminated. I had to actually, because it was really bugging me, because I thought, are those just white, or is it, sure there's a blue tinge to it? It was a beautiful sunny day for the launch. It was perfect conditions for them, really. And I ended up having to, cut my hands over the center of the steering wheel at one point when I knew it was time to just see if they were actually glowing. And yes, they were. So there's 4 little lights in the middle of the steering wheel.
Man complains of big yellow shiny thing in sky.
Yes. Absolutely not. And the car didn't complain too much about it either.
Okay, I think you have really covered the interior there. It does sound very interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of neat touches, and it sounds like it's been thought through a lot. What's the driving like then?
Surprisingly grown up and surprisingly adult.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, it's a curious one. When you're driving it, it doesn't feel like a small car.
Okay.
I think part of that is the smoothness and quietness and lack of vibration, all that kind of thing from a drivetrain, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, is one of the great things about EVs.
Yes.
Is the lack of vibration. Then you get into almost any other internal combustion engine car. It's like, whoa, this chugs. There are 2 power outputs, as I said earlier on. There's the 97 metric horses and the 115 metric horses. The only one available to drive was the 115 metric horses.
Okay.
That's a fairly chunky output. I know the Inster weighs more than maybe an AB segment car would if it wasn't an EV, but that's a decent power output. It never felt slow or underpowered. It didn't rattle over bumps. It didn't do any it didn't have any real body roll or any of these things. It drove like a grown-up car. One of the things that lots of people said when they got back was, what did they do to the suspension in that? Because I just thought it was me, and I thought it was because, I'm a bit out of practice at this. But no, everybody else commented the same. Or when they got back, we were standing in the bar with a drink after all the driving, and everyone was like, what did you think of the handling of that? It was one of those ones we all agreed that it was it was not what we were expecting at all. It was fun. Mm-hmm. It really was. And I think one of the parts to it, it's a curious thing, is that we're used to the idea of EVs having little skinny tires. The Insta does not have little skinny tires.
Okay.
It's like the opposite of a BMW i3 is like pram wheels.
Yes.
It's not like that at all. It has chunky grown-up tires. And that makes a big difference. It makes it corner much better. It means you don't fall into every ripple in the road. It's not trying to track along grooves or anything like that. It is driving like a grown-up car. And you can potter nicely around town, nipping in and out of spaces. As I say, almost single pedal driving if you ramp up the regen. And then out of town, it will cruise along quite happily. If you put the regen in auto, then it'll let it coast. If you lift off, so you're using very little throttle all the time. And because it handles well, so despite being quite tall, it is quite broad. It's quite a square car. Then you don't have body roll in the corners. You don't have anything scary going on. So you can play the old conservation and momentum game, which is kind of how I drive anyway. Again, you can make decent progress without having to try.
Okay.
You're not consciously trying. I was able to sit and drive this. I was able to sit and drive it like I would drive my own cars quite happily. Actually, quite like I would drive the Grim most of the time if I'm not going nuts, you know? You can just sit at around the speed limit, overtake when necessary, hold speed and sort of zip around some of the corners. It was incredibly surprising. And even when whenever the road conditions got worse, it still held its own. It was still comfortable. And sure, you got a little bit of moving around because it's a car and it was moving. But it really was very grown up feeling.
Okay.
Which is kind of surprising because normally, little cars with cheeky looks, then often where they fall over is in, not literally, is then whenever you drive them, they're either a bit too soft, they roll a bit, all these kind of things. You sit in a way that means that you feel tippy or you're being pushed out of the seat. Despite the fact it's a front bench seat, no, it kind of holds you in place quite well, really. Given how flat it is, the support is excellent, and that has a knock-on effect on how you drive it. I really enjoyed driving it. I liked the fact that I could just drive it like a normal car. I drove on the drivey route about 110 miles of mixed roads. So there was everything there. There wasn't any motorway, but there was a fast dual carriageway, lots of single carriageway, lots of country lanes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then single track and everything going right down to the bottom of Portland Bill because we went all the way out across Dorset. And it was a warm, sunny day. Had the AC inside was set at 22, 23 degrees. It was on auto. The car was in normal mode. Mostly had the regen in auto. I have a mental calculation when I'm driving. Doesn't matter what I'm driving. What I like to be able to do is work out how many miles I've driven since I last filled it up and what range I have left. Adding those two numbers together gives me an idea of how I'm driving, what my economy's like, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The target number in the Lexus is 400. The target number in the GRMN is
25.
300.
Oh, there's an awful lot of downhill.
Which you very rarely get in that. This was holding happily at 200. No matter what I did, with all of that stuff, with the aircon running, because it was loads of solar heat coming into the car. It was breezy when you went out, but the actual amount of sun and the general heat in the car, we heat up very, very quickly when you parked it with the windows closed. And it barely dipped below 200 miles. My average consumption was around 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour, and I was not driving, and I wasn't driving for economy. I wasn't even trying to drive for economy.
I like that.
And that's from really quite a small battery as well. It's from a relatively small fuel tank, you're getting a good mileage there. There's good efficiency.
Sounds like you've remade the Ioniq original.
Yeah, well, with twice the range.
Yeah.
Because to get that kind of number in the original Ioniq, which of course, far slippier looking shape, lower and wider, whatever, we were spending our time with the aircon off. We were in eco mode. We were driving with a foot so light it was,
It hurt.
It hurt. Well, basically, yeah. And yet, I'm getting almost that, not even trying, and hooning a little bit around country roads in Dorset on a hot, sunny day.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
That's good. There's another thing I really liked about the dashboard, by the way. I talked before about the cubes. The right-hand cube showed your range. It also showed you what it reckoned your theoretical maximum and minimum were as well.
Okay.
If I'd turned off the AC, turned the fan down, was quite prepared to cook and be a sweaty mess by the time I got back, then I would be able to get the upper range.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there's one photo I took where it shows 140 miles of range left after having covered 63.6 miles. So that's over 200 miles it's predicting there. That's the mid number. It was showing a max of 178 miles and a minimum of 93 miles.
Do you need to flick through a menu for it to show those different ones, or just does it keep...
It's there at the top and bottom corners of the cube.
Oh, okay, right.
On the right, it just shows that as you're going.
Cool. Well, I like that minimum one a lot, because in case you sit there going, actually, I really need to push on here, you've now got an indication of, right, worst case, it's this.
To give you an idea of what that was, then with 140 miles of range showing in the middle, then it would show me a maximum of 178 miles, a minimum of 93. I could easily have knocked off 47 miles, 50 miles off my range if I really, really wanted to press on, if I really wanted to ramp everything to the max. That whole thing was just really smart, really impressive. I just liked that. And it was just there. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to be clever. You just had to understand what the thing was telling you. And it was very easy to show because one number was above the other, and the actual and the most likely predicted number was right in the middle. All day, the predicted number barely changed. The total of driven plus that rarely changed. It was around there. In fact, I eked it up a bit. I wasn't driving for WLTP, but those figures were very, very close to the WLTP figures. Way closer than we'd normally say when somebody says they're quoting this mileage, and we go, yeah, it's probably closer to X amount, which is going to be lower. Very impressed with how close the predicted range has been to what it should be doing.
Good.
Last wee bit.
Yeah, technology then.
Well, I don't want to say there isn't any, because there is. But it's always a hard bit, because there's nothing outstandingly amazing. There's nothing outstandingly technologically amazing about this, other than the fact that everything's been packaged really well together and seems to work well together. I mean, it has, as well as it's got a refined but conventional electric vehicle drivetrain, it's got a refined but conventional electric vehicle battery, it's got a refined but conventional navigation and entertainment system, which is pretty much the same as any other Hyundai you're going to drive these days.
Did it have CarPlay or Android Auto? I presume it did, yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing was being run off Google Maps, Google Maps. On the launch, there was an iPhone in the car, which was plugged in, and it had the route in Google Maps and running over CarPlay.
Okay.
It just worked. It has driver assistance, all the things that are legally required. Didn't impinge me. It's worth mentioning that the launch crew on these were very good at, anytime you went back to the car, it was already turned on, which meant that the AC was running. My mileage could probably have been better than I got. It meant the AC was running, generally with the windows down just to keep the thing cool, so it wasn't having to work as hard. And they quite often turned off some of the driver assist stuff. We know what some journos can be like about that kind of thing. I cycled it myself, turned it off and on a couple of times. And I was taking photos and I stopped just because I want to know what it does by default.
Yep.
Don't necessarily want them all turned off. All the systems came on. You know what? They work just fine. I think you'd have to be being a usual kind of thing. You'd have to be being a bit of a prat to throw them up. My driving style, remember, does seem to throw up fewer false positives than others. It also, but there was nothing to throw.
Humble brag.
No, you and I. Look, if I get lots of false positives, because of it's not just my driving style, it's also where I lived and where I tend to drive, throws up different sets of challenges compared to you, because you get the collision avoidance one more often than I do, just because of cars parked on narrow streets. That's really what I'm saying without trying to say that. I didn't get any of those kinds of warnings. The one I did get, though, is that it has a concentration detection system, which makes sure you're kind of looking vaguely in the direction of the road. It had a grumble at me because Mark 1 Yaris with central speedo and bad habits. I am quite bad for driving with especially small cars, less so big cars, but generally small cars, just out of habit, hand at the top of the steering wheel like a Tesla driving person. And it didn't, and because the sensor was down on the steering column, it didn't like that because it couldn't see my face. So I got that a couple of times. It did also ping once or twice when I should have been paying more attention to the road and less attention to how the sun visors worked. And is it illuminated with the mirror? It was, from memory. And all of these kinds of things when I should have been paying more attention to the road, even though we were in very, very short traffic. So when it pinged when it was meant to ping.
Okay.
And it pinged to stop me exhibiting my bad habits. I guess that's probably a win. Other than that, just kind of worked and did its thing.
Okay, cool. Right then, we're at, I think we're at the verdict stage, because you've done a fantastic job of explaining it all.
I've gone into far too much detail, which I swore I wasn't going to do, but then there's so much things I want to tell people.
No. But this is a brand new car. This is important to know these things, because if somebody's, particularly at the price point, because if somebody's going to go for it, it is more of an investment than, say, what on paper looks like the competition. However, what you get as a result is significantly different as well.
I haven't really done any research into what the residuals are going to be like and stuff, but I would imagine the residuals of Hyundai are pretty decent relative to other brands. So I'd imagine the residuals of this are going to be pretty good. That also brings down your monthly cost, of course. So whilst the headline figure might be a little bit higher, then when you translate that into your monthly payments, then that's the difference is going to be slight to negligible.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked about this is it's a small EV you can own if you don't live in a town or city. There's definitely a good enough range. It handles well enough that if you have to do like 50, 60 mile round trips to bigger towns to get bigger things, maybe, then you can easily do that without having to charge and have charge to spare. So if you charge at home and you have to do longer journeys, then that's great. If you don't have charging at home and you are reliant on charges in sort of third spaces, so at work or wherever, then because you don't have to charge it that often because it's got very good range and good economy without having to be a massive battery, again, that brings down the cost of ownership and the cost of charging away from home.
Yep.
So if you do need to that, it's a sensible EV there because you probably won't need to charge as often. I would imagine in that situation, you're not going to be driving as much because it's harder to fill up, or you're not going to be the kind of person who needs to drive that much. Otherwise, you'd be choosing an internal combustion engine or a plug-in hybrid or something. A hybrid, really more so than a plug-in hybrid. But it actually means that if you even drive 100 miles a week, then you're probably only going to have to charge every 10 days or so. And that's me being conservative on that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're driving around town, then you ramp up the regen and then you get even further range, even more economy. It seems to cover both of those bases really quite well. While again, if you have to pay higher rates for charging, then small battery means you pay less. On top of all of that, it's got a good spec level and really good performance to justify the price. That it also looks funky and looks cool, and I don't see why anyone would be ashamed of driving it or being seen in it. Seems to be a cherry on the top of it all.
Cool.
I didn't know what this was going to be like going into it. I mean, I remember I went in the i10 launch, and the i10 was fine, but it was slow. And at times it felt like a small, cheap car. And I just want to make it clear that this does not feel like a small, cheap car, and it is not slow. It's very much a step over an i10. It is not an equivalent to an i10.
Okay.
If this was an i10 with a battery in it, it would be pretty sucky. It's not. Although that said, I love the i10 N-Line. It's 100 horsepower. It's a great alternative to maybe a small Fiat, for example.
Well, excellent. Now, I presume you and I both have to fight to see who can get one for a week after the long, long list of motoring journalists who have requested one off Hyundai now.
Yeah. I actually think this is one that you should maybe have for a week because I did lots of fun stuff with it there. But whereas I think that the opinions of some of your family would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Anyhow, folks, don't forget between now and next time you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts with the show at motoringpodcast.com, on Blue Sky, at Motoring Podcast, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Please don't forget to leave a rating on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is if you search for Crack Windscreen on Blue Sky, or I am on LinkedIn under my name if that's your preferred platform. Alan, if people would like to pick your brains about anything to do with the Insta that perhaps they don't feel you've covered, which would be remarkable.
I'd be surprised, yeah.
Yeah. What's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is via Blue Sky, where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's BRADLEY.bsky.social. Anyway, we'll be back before long, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.